I found out about my wife's infidelity at a barbecue. Actually, I don't know what pissed me off more. The fact that my asshole boss was having sex with my wife, the fact that half my coworkers were sleeping with my wife, or the fact that my wife was doing all of this without telling me. She knows that my favorite fantasy is watching her with other men. And for 6 months now, she's been being dragged left and right, and she's been hiding it from me. I found out by accident. My wife Meredith and I were at a barbecue at my boss's house. It was getting dark and I went outside for a break. There was a 4-foot brick wall around the patio and I climbed over it, sat down with my back against the wall, and watched the stars come out. I heard footsteps on the other side of the wall and a woman's voice. "Do you think Jack, that's me, has a clue that his wife is a company cheater?" Another female voice replied, "No, pardon me. That's why WG, my boss, gave him the regional manager position, to get him out of town and out of the way. The poor fool has no idea." She was right. He doesn't. Then the footsteps receded and I heard hushed voices. Just last week, when the IB Raffin executives were in town, I heard that Meredith took them all on at once and then... And the voices subsided. My first thought was that it couldn't be my Meredith they were talking about. But that thought was pushed away by the realization that no one else in the company has a wife named Meredith, and the only regional manager named Jack is me. The weekend passed very slowly for me. I watched Meredith looking for any sign of her infidelity to me, but couldn't spot any outward signs. Not that I had any idea what to look for. I dreaded the coming of Monday because I was scheduled to leave town for 3 days on a business trip to Denver. 3 days that I was to spend out of town if the women I overheard were right. By Monday, I decided I would skip work and find out if those women were telling the truth. I threw my suitcase in the car, kissed Meredith goodbye, and left. But instead of going to the airport, I went to a downtown hotel and checked in. I went to the car rental company and rented a car and drove back to my neighborhood. I prepared myself for what I estimated might be a long wait. I was wrong. I arrived just in time to see Meredith leave the house, get in her car, and drive away. I followed her as she drove to my company's office. She pulled into the visitor parking lot, but didn't get out of the car. For about 15 minutes, Meredith sat there waiting for someone or something, and at 11:15, WG came out of the building and got into the car with her. I watched as they drove across town and finally pulled into a motel parking lot. RG got out and went into the office. When he came out 5 minutes later, he walked to the unit and unlocked the door while Meredith pulled into a parking nest nearby. By the time the door closed behind them, I no longer had any doubt that what I'd heard at the barbecue was true. I gave up on the vigil and continued my business trip. When I returned on Thursday, I pulled out the yellow pages, found the number of a detective agency, and made an appointment with them. They agreed to take the case, and I agreed to install video cameras and listening devices in the house. For 3 weeks, they followed Meredith around the clock, recording all her movements. Monday, January 15th, met with 5 people at company headquarters and escorted them to room 235 of the Marriott Hotel, where she stayed for 6 hours. Tuesday, January 16th, went with WG to Motel 6 at 10:30 a.m. and stayed there with him until 1:30 p.m., met 2 men at company headquarters at 4 p.m. and went with them to Motel 6. Stayed with them in room 116 for 5 hours. Wednesday, January 17th. Was at home when Sam Jakes, vice president of the company, drove up at 7:15 p.m., stayed the rest of the night and left at 6:15 the next morning. There wasn't a day while I was gone that Meredith didn't have sex with someone or many. Leaning back in my chair, I pondered the report and what I should do with it. On the one hand, I could review the hidden camera footage and fulfill my long-held fantasy, but on the other hand, I wanted to reprimand my boss for turning my wife into the company's cheating girlfriend. The first decision I had to make was whether to confront Meredith. As far as I knew, she was a loving wife, and I had to believe she had good reasons for what she was doing, I just couldn't believe that my wife of 16 years could turn into a craven cheater overnight. My boss, on the other hand, was a sneaky, conniving, treacherous asshole. I came to the conclusion that he had somehow coerced Meredith into doing what she was doing. I made the decision to confront her face to face. It went easier than I expected. I told Meredith that I needed to talk to her, and when we sat down at the table, I handed her the detective's report. She read it without comment and handed it back to me. "What made you hire detectives?" she asked. I told her about what I had heard at the barbecue. "Stuff happens at company barbecues," she said. "Are you interested in what happened, or is this," and she pointed to the report, "the first step in the divorce proceedings?" Honey, if a divorce is going to happen, it's only because you want it to happen, not me. That report tells me that you're doing half of what I've always wanted you to do. Meredith raised an eyebrow at me. "Having sex with other men," I said. "The other half is something I should have been able to observe, and I'm angry that I don't have that opportunity. But back to your question, yes, I want to know what happened. At a corporate BBQ earlier this summer, RG approached my wife and asked if she wanted to help me keep my job. She asked him what he meant, and he told her that the company was going to downsize and that a lot of people were going to be laid off. He told her that based on my performance over the last 12 months, I would be one of them, unless, of course, she found a way to help me. Meredith knew how much I loved my job, so she asked RG what he meant. He told her that he had always liked her, and in exchange for her having sex with him while I was away on a business trip, he would make sure that my negative evaluation would disappear and a more flattering one would take its place. Meredith agreed. On my next trip, he came to my front door at 6 p.m. the day I left and held Meredith on his back for the next 6 hours. When he left, he told Meredith that he would call her in the morning and tell her where to meet him the next day. Meredith protested that she had kept her end of the bargain, but RG laughed at her. "He said during his next trip, and that trip will be 4 days long, so you'll still have to take care of me tomorrow and the day after that." The next day, Meredith met him at the Holiday Inn, and WG spent the entire day having sex with her. On the third day, he showed her the secretly taken video of the previous day. He told her that from now on, she would be his and anyone he chose, or the video would be made public. This put Meredith between a hammer and an anvil. She knew she could tell me, and that I would probably be enthusiastic about the situation, especially if I found a way to watch it, but her father was a Baptist preacher, both brothers were ministers, and her grandfather was a deacon in the church. She didn't dare let them know what she was doing, so she gave in to WG's demands. After the first couple of dates, she found that she was beginning to enjoy the sex. The quality and sometimes the quantity varied, but it only made it more interesting. It got to the point where she looked forward to my trips to have another sexual experience. "I realized that I like to get as much sex as I can handle," she said, "and if I had known then what I know now, you would have realized your fantasy long ago. But since WG turned me on, I couldn't tell you because it might affect your job." I laughed when she said that. I've never been in danger of losing my job. I'm the best producer they have, and my regional manager's job wasn't to run me out of town. I got the promotion because I deserved it. In fact, the company goes around me because they know I have had offers to go into my own business. Going into business on my own means I will take most of my accounts with me, and the company knows that. I can't understand why WG is taking such a risk trying to piss me off. What do you talk about when you're together? Not much, Meredith replied. Mostly he brags about how I've made him the most profitable sales rep in the company. From the way he talks, I think it's important for him to show Rita that he's capable of more than just sitting in his boss's chair and doing her bidding. Suddenly, like a bolt out of nowhere, I realized how to chide WG for what he'd done to Meredith. John Q. Marsden was the founder of the company I worked for. His only child, Rita, was the apple of his eye. And when he died, he left the company to her. Rita ran the company herself until she married WG. She put WG in charge of the company and devoted herself to what most wealthy socialites gravitate towards, doing good deeds. She was on all the committees to save the city, but she kept a very close eye on the company, and several times she stepped in and stopped WG when he was about to do something boneheaded. I asked Meredith, "Are you willing to help me take down WG?" "Sure," she replied. "Good," I said. "That's what we'll do." I rang the doorbell of Rita's townhouse at 1 o'clock sharp. When I called to make the appointment, I told her that I needed to talk to her about something that would have a big impact on the company, and that since she was the owner, I felt obligated to break the news to her personally. The butler let me into the house, escorted me to the library, and told me that Rita would be in shortly. I was glad the library had a TV and VCR. It would make it easier. Rita came into the room and, smiling warmly, walked over to me, holding out her hand. "Dave, it's good to see you." I took her hand and said, "It's good to see you too, boss lady. It's been a while." She motioned for me to sit down and got straight to the point. "I'm intrigued as to what kind of company business you have to conduct here instead of at RG." I frowned. "I'm actually here specifically because of the WG." Rita raised an eyebrow questioningly. RG, for some reason known only to him alone, decided to blackmail my wife into helping him increase his sales. I found out about it, and as a result, I decided to leave the company and go into business for myself. Since I will be taking most of my accounts with me, I thought it only fair to let you know why. Rita's reaction was predictable. "Dave, you're not kidding. RG would never do anything like this. There must be some kind of mistake here." I explained to her how I found out what had happened and how I had hired private investigators, and then I pulled a videotape out of my briefcase and walked over to the VCR. I turned on the TV, inserted the tape into the VCR, and pressed play. The screen lit up and showed WG in the bedroom with my wife. Both were fully clothed, and Meredith was talking. "I'm not going to be a cheater for you anymore. I've decided to tell Dave everything. I hope he forgives me, but if not, I'll have to take my chances." RG snorted. "Honey, nothing has changed here. You will have sex with me and anyone else I tell you to whenever I want. If you don't, I'll fire Dave in a heartbeat and make sure the videos of you having sex with everyone are sent to all your friends and family, your church, and every other place I can think of. Better think about how that tape would look to your father, the preacher. Imagine you're walking into church and all eyes are on you. Now take off your clothes." The tape showed them undressing and having sex. I looked over at Rita and was surprised to see that she was looking at the TV with rapt attention. She looked at me. "It seems there is ample evidence that I am wrong in my trust in WG." Then she cut to the chase. "What can I do to salvage the situation? I don't want you to leave the company, and I certainly don't want to lose any accounts you might have taken with you. Is it too late, or is there anything I can do?" I shook my head. "Under the circumstances, I don't see how I can stay in the company and not seriously injure WG the next time I run into him." Rita looked me straight in the eye and said, "Whatever you decide, WG is a thing of the past, which means I have to go back and run the company or find someone else to do it. The job will be yours if you stay." That surprised me. I expected her to leave RG, but I didn't expect to be offered his job. I told Rita I needed to think about it and asked if I could give her an answer the next day, but she didn't hear me. Her attention was on the TV screen where RG was getting ready to have sex with Meredith. All of Rita's attention was on the screen, and she didn't notice me get up and move behind her chair. I put my arms around her shoulders and placed my hands on her breasts. Rita flinched but didn't push me away. Instead, her hands came up and covered mine. "Make love to me," said Rita. "No," I said. "She just hates being blackmailed into doing it." Rita stopped my hands. "Are you going to have sex with me?" "Do you want to?" I replied. I smiled at her. "I think we need to fix that, don't you?" Meredith still has sex for company, only now she does it because she wants to, not because she's forced to. I've never asked her to do it, but when we sit down to dinner and she asks how my day went, and I mention that things aren't going well with some account, she always asks, "Wouldn't meeting with him or them help me?" And I've never said no. Rita kicked RG out of her life. He tried to fight back, but Rita asked me if she could keep the video in case she needed it for her divorce. When WG's attorney saw it, he advised WG to accept whatever Rita offered and move on with his life. I still see Rita a few times a month, and Meredith has hinted that she would like to try a threesome with Rita and me, but I don't know if I want that. Not yet. Rita has also volunteered to help Meredith woo select clients, and I'm going to take her up on it. I'm actually going to have a BBQ at our house this weekend, and as Meredith once said, all sorts of things happen at company BBQs. It will be interesting to see what happens at this one. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.